Yo, ho, hello. Super glad for you guys to be back again. I got an action-packed set of activities that we are going to do. Airbnb pricing, winter 2025, aka moving into 2026. What are all the different things you can do? There are a lot of people on YouTube or in various platforms that tell you a ton about the theory, how you can take advantage of strategic pricing, how you can do this, how you do that. I can tell you, unless they're doing paid courses, I don't see anyone going into their Airbnb app and actually doing the work with you. So I'm going to do that, not because I think I can become an influencer that way, but because I think it's just how real practicality works. A lot of these people are making content for infotainment, tons of editing to engage you. I want to make content that I hope helps people be a better host. And ultimately, if you own 1 to 5 properties in the Airbnb space, whether they're rental arbitrage or your own, places that you're paying mortgages on or whatever your setup is, ultimately, I think this kind of brass tacks advice can really benefit you. So without any further ado, let's dive into the action. I am going to break out my Airbnb calendar. So we are here, we're looking at the math. First things first, look, and this is by no means a flex, but I think it really helps to solidify, like, why the fuck is this guy talking to me about this? I've earned over $100,000 this year on Airbnb, and that is with a second property coming on stream in May of this year, and the original property we have being completely out of commission for the entire month of February of this year. So a lot of little naggles along the process, a 4-month longer build out on a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom here in East Nashville that we have. But all that to be said, the performance kind of speaks for itself. We've really, I think, done a great job for a one-man operation, and that's on property management, pricing, guest management, guest messaging. And in addition to earning the cash, right, which is great, we've gotten a 4.99 review out of 160 reviews in 19 or 20 months of hosting. So we opened our first property May of 2023, which means, May of 2024, excuse me. We're now in 2025. May of 2024, we opened our first property, which was the first home that we bought here in Nashville. So all that to be said, I've lived it, I've breathed it. I'm not expert at it by any means, but I'm definitely, I think, more advanced than your average bear. So the first thing that I want to jump into is, if you are not taking advantage of rule sets within your pricing strategy, you're making a big mistake. So rule sets are effectively this combination of concepts, or this combination of things that you can do to drive bookings, and ideally to drive the type of bookings that you want. A simple example of the type of booking that I want is, I really don't want 1-night stays, and I really do want 3 to 5 night stays. Those are kind of the sweet spot. And of course, a 3 to 5 night stay that happens over a weekend would be extra positive. So come in on a Thursday, leave on a Monday, come in on a Thursday, leave on a Tuesday. That is sweet sauce. We could run a profitable business just on that. So I'm not going to go through every one of these today, but I am going to go through 2 because I'm actively updating our pricing strategy for the fall/winter of 2025. This is, as many people will tell you, the slow season, obviously for many regions in the US. Of course, there are some, that have a great desert climate that may not see that suffering, or may have actually benefit during this time. But for us, this is when bookings start to slow down, especially that December, January, February time is really rough, or can be. So the first one we're going to look at is what I call the weekday blitz. So you may have guessed it. If we scroll over here to the right, you'll notice that many of my weekdays, as we scroll from left to right, or almost all of my weekdays, I think it's all of my weekdays out until April, I have it set right now. not too many people are booking 6+ months out. So I'm not really worried about where my pricing stuff is looking on those levels. I have all of my weekdays. Weekday means Sunday night, all the way to Thursday night. I have it factored in here. So what happens with my weekday blitz? So if I go in and I look at edit, you can see that first off, it brings my nightly price down. So from whatever my pricing software has it set at, I'm currently using AirDNA as well as uplisting. So I believe AirDNA purchased uplisting a number of months back. You can control your prices through uplisting, but I still prefer the interface of AirDNA to manage my pricing. We manage our prices there. We set them at certain thresholds, high, low, seasonal rates. I am going to go ahead and actually make an adjustment here and change this from subtracting my price by 5%. I'm going to make a pretty egregious move, and I'm going to bump that almost to double. Why? Because I'm trying to accelerate the bookings in the weekdays for the next 3 or 4 months. And as you just saw, I have that rule set applied across 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to change this from was 5 to 9. Another thing, and this is Sean Rakizic really talks about this a lot, and I credit him a lot for a ton of the information that I've learned here. I think, frankly, he does what I'm showing you now in this video. He just does it in a paid group, and I'm just doing it, for people for free. You really want that these discount profiles incentivize the type of behavior that you have. So during my weekdays, so Sunday to Wednesday, there is no stay length minimum on the books. So people can book a Sunday to a Monday, they could book a Monday to a Tuesday, et cetera, et cetera. However, you really want to make it where during the weekdays where it's harder to get multi-night bookings. So that's why you don't put a stay minimum on your weekdays. You really want to incentivize people to stay multiple days because your cleaning cost is the same, whether it's a Monday to Tuesday or whether it's a Monday to Thursday cleaning, right? So in this case, I'm going to up my 2-night discount to 8%. I'm going to adjust my 3-night discount to 14%. And I'm going to adjust my 4-night discount to 18%. Actually, I'm going to make it 20%. If somebody books a 4-night stay, they should really be actually 25%. They should really be heavily incentivized because that puts, more money in my pocket for them to do that. I'm going to bump this up to 17%. And I'm going to make this a 9%. So you can see you really start to change some of these levels. And, will we get the type of demand or the type of adjustments you're looking for? I hope so, but I don't know. Now, here's what's interesting is I can go down to availability and I can say that these discounts only apply for a 2-night stay. I'm going to change that because I want that anyone looking at the price is getting a lower price, even if they're looking to stay for 1 night. Again, because we're in that slower time and I want to increase the number of bookings that I get. So I'm going to change that from 2 to 1. I have my 2-night discount at 9%. So that means right off the rip, if someone goes on let's say someone's looking at a booking in early January of this year and they look on a Sunday to a Wednesday, they're going to get 9% off the list price. And then Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night is 3 nights. They're then going to get 18% off of whatever that price was. So let's say their total price there was $500. So 10% off of 500 is 50. So they're going to be at 450. And then if they go 450, 20% off of 450, you're talking about another $90 off of 450. So you're now at 360, right? And that's 360 for a 3-night stay, depending on, the type of amenities that you get and how many people you're bringing. You're really talking about a pretty nice little discount there. Now, this I think also has a really big impact. So I want to start incentivizing people early or as early as possible to book the place. So I'm going to drive this discount up. So now remember, we're in the slow season. the likelihood that people are booking 2 weeks out is much lower, actually. So you have to start thinking a little bit further out. People are planning for Christmas, people are planning for New Year. You have to think the likelihood I'm going to get a booking tomorrow is lower in the slow season. Now, the likelihood that you're going to get a booking tomorrow, even in peak season, is pretty darn low. So you want these discounts to be meaningful so that they, again, incentivize people to act. I'm going to take this 21 days. I know that people, if the place isn't booked 21 days out, the likelihood that it will become booked is much lower. Much lower. So typically people are booking even last minute travel. They are booking 21 days out. So I want to really boost that up, and then we'll have 15% discount there. Okay. All right. Very good. 4-night discount decrease. And now I'm going to save that setting. Cool. Now, just to give you a sense, and I think this is, hopefully useful information, and this does talk or speak to the power of a pricing management system like AirDNA or a Price Labs or Wheelhouse or whatever you're using. So if we look here, you can see, and let's again focus our eyes on the weekdays, because we haven't modified. Give me 1 second. Stay in the call. Good deal. Okay. Yeah. So we haven't modified our weekend packaging yet. So I just want to focus on the weekday prices. So if we look in March of 2026, we're starting to ramp out of the slow season. Look at our weekday price. So this is for people's context, this is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom in East Nashville, Tennessee. And this one is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom in East Nashville, Tennessee, much more proximate. So about 3 or 4 minutes from downtown Nashville. And this one is about 12 minutes from downtown Nashville. So both in, around many cool things, but this one bigger groups further away. This one smaller groups, much closer to the heart of downtown. So notice the price differences here. Now, if I start scooting back to where we are now, right? So we're in November of this year. You'll see really quickly that what was a $300 listing in March of next year is a $150 listing or a $90 listing now. Now, I do think this is an interesting conundrum, and I want to play around, and you can see the reason that's so steep is if we're Thursday, we are 7 days out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These numbers are because it's getting every single discount that I have listed in my program. So now, just to show that this smart math is working. So you've seen 2 pieces of math working. You've seen the AirDNA, that the pricing based on seasonality is working. So a much higher price in the spring of next year versus today. And you've seen that if I go here and let's just say for fun, I make this 0% discount on the price and I click save, you'll see that my numbers go up. So what was 90 goes up to 100. Now I'm looking at this and I will say that there's some judgment that has to be used. Oh, I jumped too far. There's some judgment that has to be used on what price point is too low to make it seem like, this place is worth it, or this place is well kept or well managed. Now, I think my reputation speaks for itself. Again, referencing back to, 160 reviews, nearly, a perfect 5-star rating. I think that my reputation shows like these places are nice and people get that sort of social validation or peer validation through looking at that. But if you're looking at a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house for $100 a night, maybe you think that's really cheap. But you can also, you have to kind of land somewhere on what these price points should be. Now, notice that the price point of the bigger home in March of next year was, I think, $50 to $100 more than the smaller home in March, April of 2026, look at this. The price point of the smaller home is actually bigger. And the key reason why there, and this is kind of an interesting insight or interesting point, not so difficult to ascertain, but something that's still relevant, is as you get closer to the time of people booking, the likelihood that a group needing a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house to stay goes down. So, the number of people, the volume of people that have a group of 1, 2, 3, or 4 that could fit in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath goes up. And inversely, the opposite goes down. And you look at sort of maintaining your pricing integrity a little longer because of that. Now I'm going to go here. I am going to adjust this down by 5% decrease. I'm going to change this to be 8, 3-night stay, 17, 4-night stay, 25 is totally fine. And then I'm going to drop this down a little bit, 13%, 9%, and let's go 7% here. Because I do want to incentivize people, if they're on the fence, to book my place 28 days out rather than capturing all of these discounts that are here 14 days out. So let's click save. Okay, cool. Is this perfect? I'm not exactly sure, but it looks pretty good to me. Now, I wanted to look at one more of the pricing topics that we have here. Now, for example, I have set what I call a turbo turnaround, and the turbo turnaround is really what I wanted to be. I made a lot of tweaks to the 8%, 17%. So really what I want to do is I'm actually going to, sorry for the little bit of confusion, but hey, such is life in these systems. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to make this a 0 and I'm going to click save. Now watch what I do here, right? If I look at my numbers, we have 108, 103, 117, 143. Remember, this pricing mechanism tracks all the way out in the future. Now, I still want people to book with me for multiple days, right? I still want that to happen. Now I'm going to click save here. But what I also don't want to happen is what I do want to happen is I really want to get rid of these next 4 weeks, these next 8 weeks. I really want those dates to get booked. So what I'm going to do is I am going to apply, instead of the weekday discount, I'm going to apply the turbo turnaround instead. And the turbo turnaround, so what I like about the turbo turnaround here is I have a different rule set. It gives me a little bit more configurability within that 30 to 45 day range to be much more aggressive, but not so blanketed across, deep times in the future. So if you take away anything from this video, I hope one of the things that you take away is you can't just have one pricing setup or one pricing rule that solves for all problems. You likely need to have your weekends, covered, making sense. You need to have something for the 0 days to 45 days out in the future. And you need to have something for the 45 days to 180 days for your less desirable times, so that all the pricing can kind of make sense. Now, I'm going to look at these. Again, you'll notice that the pricing is not that different, right? So if we go back, I remember those prices being somewhere in the, the 105 range, 100 range. The pricing is not all that different. Again, the point I'm trying to make is that the pricing is, I'm making the pricing similar, but I'm making it similar for a short period of time rather than cutting all my prices for a really long period of time. I'm going to say, if you book, so now remember, I'm only doing this for the next 8 days. Or for the next 30 days. I'm going to say, if you do it in the next 30 days, I'm going to give you a 10% discount for 2 nights. Oh, Airbnb does that sometimes, and I really hate it. That's okay though. And then we'll go to 2 nights, and we'll say if you book with me for 2 nights, you get a 10% discount. You book with me for 3 nights, you get an 18% discount. And then I'm going to up this to 14 days, and I'm going to make it a 5% discount. Actually, I'll make it even 21 days, and I'll make it a 5% discount. It's kind of interesting, this discount starts, you could view this as if this is 15% of a discount, right? And I only have this applied for 28 days, then I don't technically need this discount starts within, but I'm going to put this as a 15%. I'm going to put this as a 10, and we'll go save there, and we'll see how that affects our prices, right? So again, the pricing levels are very similar to what you saw in the previous example, but you don't see that rule set applied across weeks after that time. And you can see that I'm pretty booked in that time, so I'm not really looking to accelerate it too much. Now, what's interesting is if I go out one more week, right? Well, really what I want to do is look at this window. So 228 to 248, right? So let's change that, and let's see what it would look like if I did turbo turnaround there. 228 to 248. 205 to 223. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to do this turbo turnaround. I'm going to extend this idea, and I'm going to do it for the weeks of January. That still puts us quite a bit out, right? So we're still a little bit out. But again, these are the slowest times of the year. So you really got to think about maximizing people booking with you as opposed to booking with an alternative in those gaps. And so here we have, one last rule set. I might make another video about this. That next video will be, what should my weekend strategy be for my slower months? And I'd like to tune that in an upcoming video. So in the meantime, really appreciate you all tuning in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just say, I'll keep providing this kind of working in progress content. I'm also going to have a better background in the not so distant future. So stay tuned for that. And catch you on the flip. Peace.